Hello, Popcorn Junkies. How are we doing? Is it a perfect day for you? Are you having a perfect day? Well, we're going to be reviewing a movie that I don't think a lot of you would necessarily be aware of or necessarily be obviously drawn to, but I think you need to see. This is a film called Perfect Days, directed by none other than Wim Wenders. Wim Wenders, German filmmaker, notable for films such as Wings of Desire, a beautiful film from the 80s, was it? Major impact on me at film school. And Paris, Texas, that brilliant film with Natasha Kinski and Harry Dean Stanton, was it? Beautiful film, brilliant film. He's a fantastic filmmaker. And this is a new film. I think he also did the recent documentary about Anselm Kiefer, the sculptor and artist. So this is Perfect Days. This is a film that stars, excuse me, I just want to make sure I get his name correct, Kōji Yakusho. Kōji Yakusho, I don't know him myself. And it's an incredibly simple, meditative, nuanced film. It's been nominated for Best International Picture at the Oscars, and I want you to stick with me on this. I'm going to try and get across how impactful this film was for me. I watched this really late at night. It was like I'd gone back to the 80s. It was like being back at film school. I was at what used to be called the Renoir, which is the Curzon Bloomsbury now. Much prefer the Renoir. I was in a tiny little cinema with about 8 seats, which begs you the question, why didn't you just watch it at home? Because it's not available. There was a couple came in, sat next to me. At first, I did that classic London thing of, oh, why have you sat next to me? A couple who were in love. She buried her head into his chest. They giggled, they smiled, and they watched this film all the way through. This is a story of Hirayama, and Hirayama is a man who is a toilet cleaner. I kid you not, a toilet cleaner. And I like that. This is a Groundhog Day-like portrait of a man who's a toilet cleaner. And it doesn't go to any other sort of efforts to kind of apologise for that or explain it or over-justify it. He just happens to be a toilet cleaner. Every day he wakes up to what most of us would be hell. He wakes up, he has ritualistic comfort in the smaller things in life, from whether it be his personal effects that he leaves on a little mantelpiece or shelf by the front door, his keys, his car keys, some change, his wallet and what have you, to him going outside of his front door from his small apartment to getting a nice coffee from a vending machine. And this film goes to not great lengths. It doesn't sort of sit there in a sort of boring fashion just showing you it, though it's slow. And I encourage you and I urge you and I demand of you that in this incredibly busy, time-demanding kind of landscape where everything's edited and everything's fast and everything's this, that and the other, this is one of those films that if you want to have a meditative kind of moment of mindfulness, but you also have to want to be watching something too, this is the film for you. So we're showing 2 or 3 days of him going off and cleaning toilets. So the first observation I made as a huge user of public conveniences in this country is, wow, Tokyo has some sensational public toilets. My God, we're beautifully made. The architecture's fantastic. They're stunning. They're clean. They're creative. They're places not surrounded by perverts and drug takers, though we get a little bit of that in this. But you know what I mean. They're not places to be shunned. Least of all because we have our wonderful chap Hirayama, played by Kōji Yakusho, looking after them and cleaning them, what have you. And this is a film where you see about 6 or 7 of his days going to clean toilets, the various toilets around Tokyo. Another part of his routine or his regimen, if you like, is every day in the car he pops in a new cassette. He's analog. This guy's analog. He's analog and he grows acers. I mean, what not like to like, guys? In his side room, he has a room of acers with a red light, and every day he puts on a cassette and he plays a different track. It might be Patti Smith, it might be Lou Reed. It's a perfect day. I used to hate that song. I love it in this film now because of this film. He plays Nina Simone. He plays all sorts en route to work, essentially, and his work sees him going from toilet to toilet to toilet, cleaning this one, cleaning that one, and really this is a film about him doing that, but him looking open-eyed at the ordinariness and everydayness of life. This is a character, this is a man who is open-eyed when it comes to looking at the world. He doesn't judge people. When interesting moments in every toilet that he cleans, someone comes and needs to use the loo, and he will step aside and stand outside and with great dignity just wait for them to use the toilet. This is sounding really odd because where's the drama you're screaming? Where's the drama? Well, the drama, I have to say, where the drama came from for me was I was feeling the drama of thinking, where's the drama? Because I think it's actually inherently quite stressful. I struggle with mindfulness to sit down, stop, breathe slowly, take time for myself. So watching a film in which a guy does this in his day-to-day sort of movements, the ritualistic, rhythmic, soulful kind of rhythms of doing nothing sensational, nothing massively important, but in and of itself kind of crucially important too. You don't want dirty toilets, you know what I mean? Someone has to do it, and this is the guy who's doing it. I wish he was doing all the toilets in London. But he does these little things. There are these other little aspects of his daily sort of routine that are beautiful. So he'll always go to the same square next to one toilet where he'll sit and he'll have a sandwich. And whilst he's having his sandwich, he'll take out a sort of crappy little disposable camera, still analog, again, film, and he'll look up and he'll take a photograph of the trees. Now, he's not taking this photograph for aesthetic purposes. It's not like, oh, that's a beautiful angle, oh, the shadow's nice. They happen to be nice, but he's just literally charting, chronicling, or seeking a visual confirmation or affirmation of that day, a sort of gratitudinal photograph that he takes in that moment. And that we discover later in the film, he keeps these images in boxes in his house with dates and all that kind of thing. He has a room, as I say, he has a room of cared for aces and bonsai trees and all this sort of stuff. And whilst he has no children, and you're thinking, well, where's his family? Where is this rootless man? Is he connected to anyone? Does he have anyone in his life that could find him, or is missing him, or is thinking of him? He has a work colleague who's a bit silly and a bit hyperactive and is wanting a girl to go on a date with this woman. But he has this room of aces, and this room of aces is like, these are his kids. You know, like any gardener or anyone who doesn't have children, these are his children. He tends to them beautifully, right down to the fact that even when he's in this sort of square by this toilet having a sandwich, he spots a new shrub, a new specimen, and so he boxes it, and he takes this little sapling and he takes it home and he adds it to his family. Every day he comes out and he smiles, you know. It's like he's happy, he's content. Content is probably better than happy. He's quite quiet, he's not moody, he doesn't have much to say, and he doesn't want to say much, and that's good. But then there are increasingly across the film more and more interactions with other characters, and so consequently there is a light kind of narrative arc to this. Obviously there's, as I said, there's his work colleague with whom he lends him his car, he lends him some money so that his work colleague can go on this date. He's trying to woo this young attractive woman. Our lead character, our guy, he meets his work colleague's girlfriend, and his work colleague slips his Patti Smith audio cassette into her bag without her knowing, actually, because she liked the music, and so consequently this leads to them meeting up again later in the film. When they do meet later in the film, she gives him a peck on the cheek. There's nothing untoward about this guy. There's nothing sexual. He's got no desire. When he smiles at a woman in a square, he's smiling at a woman in a square. He's not smiling at her because... But you can see little moments, the strength of the actor's performance, the strength of Kōji Yakusho's performance, is that you see him at one point, for example, he smiles at a woman in the square, and she keeps looking at him in a kind of... She looks really alarmed, though she's got no reason to be. And you can see just it passes over him, though it doesn't either, but it does. This thought of, oh, yeah, she could read this as wrong. I don't want her to, because that's not how I'm looking at her. It's an incredibly nuanced, beautiful, sensitive, incredibly intricate and intimate and gentle performance by Kōji. It really is quite sensational, quite a beautiful performance to watch. And as I say, there's this moment later in the film where she gives him his tape back and she gives him a peck on the cheek. And again, nothing sexual, but that moment gives him such a skip in his step, because he's been kind of observed and confirmed and seen, and how we all need to be sort of observed and seen and acknowledged. At one point, his work colleague takes him to a second-hand cassette and vinyl store to flog one of his cassettes, because his colleague has worked out that his cassettes are worth a fucking fortune, because who listens to cassettes anymore? It made me wish I hadn't got rid of any of my cassettes, and it actually made me think I'm going to put all my CDs in the loft, because one day they're going to be analog too. And so you have this sort of neat idea that he's an analog man, but he's not an analog man, our lead character, in the way that, say, they are in Bermondsey, or, you know, in those sort of wanky, sort of Southerky places where they kind of go, I only do vinyl audio cassette. No, inadvertently, he loves audio cassettes. That's where he listens to his music. And he also buys books from a second-hand bookstore. And I have to say, I love the woman, if my mum sees the film, I love the woman in the bookshop who's always got a line, a pithy little line or observation about whichever author he buys a book of, you know, whether it be a line about Patricia Highsmith, oh, she's the master of fear, I think, rather than anxiety, or maybe the other way around, I can't remember. You know, he leads it's like a Buddhist ascetic. The word ascetic is great. It's an ascetic life he leads. He sleeps on a roll mat as a futon. He reads by one light. He has one light bulb that he unscrews from the top light, puts it in the reading light. It's a very modest existence, and it suits him, and he loves it. But then his niece crashes into his life. And when his niece arrives, she's intrigued by him. Where have you been? Who are you? Why have you? And he's intrigued by her. Do you always run away from home and all this kind of stuff? And she becomes a sort of buddy. She wants to shadow him. He gets up at stupid o'clock, but she's awake and she's like, I want to come with you. I want to see what you do. Not because I want to see what you do for work. I just want to hang out with you and be with you. Her act of rebellion against her mum, who we discover is quite sort of, you know, image conscious, and she's quite conventional, and she's got a nice car, and she asks, well, when she comes to get her daughter later in the film, she says, are you really a toilet cleaner? There's judgment. This niece isn't judgy of him. She isn't judgy of him at all. And so his idyll is disrupted by family, extended family. And whilst he loves having his niece around, it also unsettles him. And it especially unsettles him when his sister, his niece's mother, comes to collect her. And as I say, his sister kind of asks those questions, saying, "Have you seen our dad? He's ill, he's dying." And you get just a gentlest suggestion that there's been something not nice or about his relationship with his dad. That his dad was perhaps a bit of a bully and a bit judgy of the choices and decisions that our dear Hirayama, our lead character, has made for his life. And then when they leave, when his sister takes his niece, it's the one moment he cries. My God, he cries. Oh my God, when the actor Kōji Yakusho cries. Oh my God. It's like the outside world, like a virus, had infected his idyll, his calmness, the perfection, the stability, the routine, the rhythm of his day. And why shouldn't he? Sometimes I think we all tend to think, oh, well, if you're only living your own life without any connections doing anything, you've got to be selfish. This film speaks to the idea that maybe it isn't selfish. Maybe it's just truly stripping everything you want or need and want to give back down to its bare essentials. And that actually all these complications of family and expectations and judgments and all that is where all our unhappiness comes from. It reminds me of that idea that for me, the greatest stress I've always experienced in our business is the stress of other people, not necessarily the stress you're creating for yourself. So in a sense, his world is poisoned somewhat. Throughout all of this, we have dreamy, scratchy, sort of dreamlike sequences. There's the suggestion of a dad in there. It becomes abstract, it's black and white, it's quite sort of art house, art school kind of stuff. It doesn't interfere too much. I quite liked it. I thought these were nice, creative beats. There were a little bit punctuation points. It sort of took you to the idea that there's deeper reservoirs of stuff going on in him. Something else is making him tick. And for example, he goes off to this, I don't know if they're a thing in Tokyo, but this sort of bar which is run by a woman. It felt like a brothel, but it wasn't. It was like a bar, just a woman pouring drinks for a few men. He goes there. But this film really appealed to the monk in me. This film really appealed to the ascetic lifestyle that I've often wondered I should have had. It made me, I haven't seen any Studio Ghibli movies, and the girls are going to be taking me on a journey through those very soon. But this film had the mood or a vibe or a feeling to it that I imagine the Studio Ghibli films have. It was calming, it was comforting, it was life affirming, it really was. And I think, the final shot of this film is a long held shot of Kōji Yakusho as he's driving and he's listening to the Nina Simone and I'm Feeling Good song. And wow. When you get those montages at all these award ceremonies or tributes and all that kind of stuff, the best moments in film, and you get that, I always get that rousing kind of, oh, cinema is so great. Well, the final shot of this film needs to go into some of those montages, because as he's listening to this music, he is crying, tearful, smiling, joyful, all in equal measure, all in and of at the same time. And this really spoke to something I don't think it's spoken about enough. And that's about how sadness and tears can sit in extraordinary close proximity to laughter and happiness, that joy and sadness can be much closer, and that in fact we use words and we use language to distinguish the two, when in fact the two of them can sit very, very close. You can cry with joy, you can cry with sadness, you can feel an elation that's both a sort of depletion, and this film speaks to that. The final shot in this film is both, you feel sort of roused, but you also feel like, oh my God, I want to reach in there, I want to look after him, I want to care for him even. One other sort of brief exchange which I thought was really sweet was he has this moment where this guy, who is in fact the husband of the woman who's the proprietor of the bar that our guy goes to, and the husband of the woman says he's divorcing her, he's dying of cancer. Anyway, so we end up with this curious scene where these two men, our lead character and the ex-husband of this woman that runs this place that he drinks at, they end up playing shadow tag, having a few drinks by the river and playing shadow tag. And they asked this wonderful question at one point, which I've been thinking about ever since. And one of them said, if you put one shadow over another shadow, is the shadow darker? Oh, and they find this out. And again, like so many great things at the moment, I've just done a book review for the No Name Sunday show about Day. So many things that really kind of catch me at the moment are those films that speak to the truth that we are all, as my grandmother said, essentially children, still children. We are always children. We become physically older, we take on responsibilities. The stress, the anxiety, the struggle that we have is about trying to kind of exist in a world that's artificially beyond us, adult-wise, and actually doesn't speak to that childlike innocence and sense of joy and playfulness that I think we all have. And so seeing two grown men in very different circumstances dancing with each other, playing shadow tag with each other, asking questions about whether shadows are dark, it was beautifully childlike. I thought this was one of the most beautiful films I've seen in an awfully long time. I would highly recommend it, but please put your phone to the side. Seeing it in a cinema allows you to not be able to be distracted by a phone. Don't be distracted by a phone. Sit there, sit back. His performance is beautiful. It's light-hearted. There are little laughy moments. It'll make you smile. It'll make you feel good. It'll make you think, I need to change my fucking life. That's the other major thing. So if I was to give this a score, it's totally unlike anything. I mean, when you score a film, you're not scoring it in comparison to how you score another film. In its own terms, this is 100 out of 100. A beautiful, beautiful, sensitive, intimate, important little poem, prayer of a film.